welcome back to the Barbers United Fantasy Football League. I am here and we are doing something a little bit different this week. We just got through week 7, which is officially the halfway mark of our regular season because our regular season ends week 14. So instead of doing our typical recap video of just the week, we are going to be doing a recap video of the first half of the season, a first half review. So rather than just having one guest here with me, I'm going to have multiple, and there will be 2 different videos with about half the league. Can't get everybody, but we're going to do about half the league in one video and another half the league in the other video, and we're going to talk about our team. So I will give you the recaps real quick just for those of you that are interested here. I went against Philip and I won 149 to 133. Braden takes down Jacob Weir in a very close one, 124 to 123. Marcos Trap Daddy Thatcher defeats Josh Turley, 163 to 111. Hunter Ford takes down Lucas Larson, Book of Mormoms, 90 to 87. Village Idiots Josh Lott defeats Schutz, 110 to 93. And Blake Morgan, Saquad's squad takes down Sam, 109 to 95. So those are last week's matchups recapped. And I hope you guys enjoy this video, and we're gonna go ahead and slide on over to our mid-season review. Thanks, guys. Guys, welcome in. How are we feeling? We got Braden, Schutz, and Lucas Larson over there. Let's look at the standings right now. We're halfway through the season, and let's see where everyone stands. Currently at number 1 is Saquad's squad. Number 2, Trap Daddy Thatcher. Number 3, Book of Mormoms. Number 4, Josh Turley. Number 5, Village Idiots. Number 6, Hunter Ford. Number 7, Sam I Am. Number 8, myself. Number 9, Schutz. Number 10, Braden. Number 11, PD the Great. And number 12, to infinity and beyond, Jacob Weir. Okay, guys, let's give out some awards here for the first part of the season, first half of the season. I want to hear who you guys have as your biggest surprise so far. I will start off. I think it's easy, and this may be unanimous. Biggest surprise for me is Josh Turley. Now, he's coming off of a loss, but he is still 5-2. Anybody that watched the draft video saw our reactions to his strategy. A lot of people did not believe in him. However, he has proven so many people wrong. He is 5-2. He is currently in the playoffs. He is my biggest surprise. Do any of you guys have a biggest surprise?
Oh, Josh Turley, 100%. I mean, in our first video, the drafting video, you can see me personally thinking, what the heck are you doing? $50 for Mahomes? I was like, bro, chill out. I mean, it's just Mahomes. He's not, well, it's also Mahomes and Kelsey, and he has both of them, and they have done insane the entire year.
Definitely. And that kind of brings us to the next award we're going to give out, which is Manager of the Mid-Year, since we're only halfway through. Lucas, you got someone for me?
I was going to go with Blake just because he's obviously number 1 for a reason right now. I think he made some trades towards the beginning of the season too, so he kind of assured his team there a little bit, and he's at the top now. So
definitely. Let's move on to our next award here, biggest disappointment. So what team has disappointed you the most halfway through the season? And Schutz, do you have a biggest disappointment?
My team. Not gonna lie.
Those are our awards right there, superlatives so far for halfway through the year. Now let's go ahead, let's get away from these standings, and let's talk about your guys' individual teams and how you guys feel so far. So, Lucas, I want to start with you. We're going to go into draft night here. You, to me, seem like you were one of the most prepared for this. I know you were messaging me, asking me questions about it. You've played in similar leagues. Now, had you ever played in an auction league before?
No.
How do you feel like, from what your plans were, where you invested your money in, to now, how do you feel about your draft?
I feel good about the draft. It's at this moment, I feel like my team really has one glaring weakness, and it's just my RB2. But other than that, I have most of the same players that I had from draft night, and then my bet on Hopkins, it kind of paid off this past week in the sense that his first week back, he gets almost 20 points. And they're feeding him the ball, and also that, they have another injury. They lose their number 1 receiver at that point. So Hopkins comes in, he's going to fill in, so he's going to keep getting touches. Lamar Jackson, he paid off early, and then he's been down, but Nick Chubb I thought was a really good value for me. I've got Kareem Hunt. He's in the middle of trade talks, and part of the reasons why I went after him was because I thought that he would be traded. And I was kind of hoping that that would have already happened by now. But if he does get traded and becomes a top running back for another team, that's going to work out in my favor. Amari Cooper, he's up and down, but when he's up, he's really high. And when he's been down, it hasn't really hurt me too bad. Mark Andrews, same thing. Like, he goes up and down. But overall, I feel good about my team because I have enough consistency there to, like, compete pretty much every week. But I have the players that will get me 20 or 30 points, and I've got multiple of those players.
So when we look back at drafts, normally we say, oh, this guy was a draft bust or he was a draft steal. And it's not necessarily that those guys aren't playing well at all or that they're just absolutely terrible. It's that the price you paid for what you're getting does not match up, right? And so specifically for an auction draft, you can very easily or I should say more easily be able to pinpoint that than a regular draft because you're actually spending a specific amount of money on each player. So Braden, I want you to tell me someone you feel like you overspent on. I was looking at your roster from draft night. I did see that you had drafted both Robert Woods and Elijah Moore. I think you've pivoted from at least one of those, if not both of those at this point. But those were two guys I think that you spent pretty early on a decent amount of money that really got you no return, especially with Elijah Moore, what he's doing right now. Would you say one of those guys was probably your worst purchase, or was there someone different you had in mind?
I don't think I spent that much on Elijah Moore. I don't know. I want to say my biggest bust is probably more in my starting lineup. I've been very disappointed in the guys that I spent high on and counted on them to kind of carry my team. Dalvin Cook's just now coming around. The first couple of weeks, like, he put me in a big hole. I think I was 0-2 or 0-3 because he just wasn't performing. And then Debo hasn't been what I hoped he would be to carry me in my wide receiver core. And those are the two guys I spent the most money on. I think they're both close to 50, maybe over 50. So I feel like it's more in my core players.
Now, I'll ask you the same question, Schutz. We'll go over to your team and your draft strategy. A, what was your draft strategy? Do you feel like it paid off? And then B, your biggest investment was McCaffrey. You went all in. He's played solidly well, and now he's a 49er. He was your biggest investment. How do you feel about having spent the amount of money you did on him versus some of the other guys in his category?
So with McCaffrey, I'm okay with how much I spent with him. I spent 50 even, I believe. There are some other slightly better running backs who went for a little bit more, but I still feel like 50 for McCaffrey was okay. It does kind of suck that he is with the 49ers, but I'm hoping he's going to be getting a lot of end zone looks or red zone looks coming up here pretty soon. He's got to learn, the 49ers playbook or whatever. So I'm hoping within a week or two he'll be okay. But it did help. I was able to make a trade with you pretty early on in this season. I believe on that trade,
it would have been a trade for CeeDee Lamb. You would have got CeeDee Lamb and Dawson Knox from me for George Kittle and Elijah Mitchell. And I'll segue that into my team and how I feel like my draft night went. When I went into it, I was all about making sure that I followed a value. You know what I mean? I didn't want to overspend on anybody. I had certain values and I wanted to spend those. I wish I had overspent on a true wide receiver one. If I could go back and change it, that would be the one thing I would change. Right now, my wide receiver one, I'm rocking with my boy, Terry McLaurin. Scary Terry has not been very scary this year, but he helped me get this dub last week, so I'm wearing his jersey for the first time this season. I had drafted CeeDee Lamb, who's a borderline wide receiver one, but I did trade him, like you said, for Kittle. And now I'm just in a spot where I have a lot of guys that are in that wide receiver 2 to wide receiver 3 category, and I have a hard time knowing who am I going to start, who am I not going to start, but I don't have that dominant wide receiver 1 that can get me 15 plus points every single week. And so if there's one thing I would change, it would be that.
And you had Marquise Brown, and he was doing
you're right.
He was doing good until he got hurt.
Yes.
So now he's out 6 weeks. So it puts you in a tough spot because are you going to wait 6 weeks for him to come back and hope that you're in playoff contention?
I'm not, but you'll find out later.
Are you going to ship him off to somebody?
I may
and
do
hope
that.
You get enough back in return, which we actually had a trade. It's exactly what happened.
Perfect.
And that worked out well for you.
So let's segue again. Perfect segue. We're going to go ahead and go into our first half thoughts. Let's talk about what happened in the first half of the season, and we will talk about where you feel like your team, or how you feel like your team has done. And so we'll go back to Lucas there. Lucas and me just made a trade. Do you have it in front of you there? Read it for me.
Yeah, I've got it right here. So I sent Marquise Brown, or I got Marquise Brown, A.J. Dillon, and $20. And I sent in return Antonio Gibson, George Pickens, and Javonte Williams.
Not Jameson Williams. And so Lucas, you were the #1 team in the league for 5 weeks in a row. That you were just dethroned for the first time. And so you've spent a lot of time on top here. You've been very successful. Everyone knows it. We've talked about it every week. However, I have noticed that 3 of your last 4 weeks you have scored less than 110 points. Now, for most teams, that's not a terrible week, but for you, who was averaging 140, 150, 160 the first few weeks, to now have a drop down to 110, how are you feeling about that?
I was really excited through like the first 3 weeks, and then the next 3 weeks came, and I did just barely miss out like 2 weeks ago on having the highest point total by like a point. So I did sort of bounce back a little bit. But what's kind of bothered me is Lamar Jackson has he had like 2 back-to-back weeks that were crazy, and then he hasn't done much since then. And also the Browns offense, I do have 3 Browns players in my starting lineup. So Jacoby Brissett's kind of struggled over the last couple weeks, and when he struggles, the other teams are able to put more players in the box and stop Chubb. Hunt just hasn't really gotten much of anything going. And then when Brissett struggles, he looks for Peoples-Jones more than he does Cooper, which doesn't really make sense to me, because Cooper's open most plays. If you actually watch the Browns play for the 15 people that do, he's open most plays. So if he looked for him every other play, he would be more consistent. So I was really happy. Then I was kind of down. Then I was back up again. I'm probably at the lowest now that I was since we started the season, just because I scored 87 points. I'm like the second lowest total for the whole week. And I sort of mismanaged a little bit because I made that trade with you, and had I just kept Pickens and made that trade a week later and started Pickens, I would have won.
Well, let me say this, Lucas. You're not going to get any sympathy from Schutz, Braden, or myself, because we would be ecstatic to be having the season that you are currently having. So, although you were feeling a little bit down, trust me when I say it could be much, much worse. So,
I'm 2-5, and I'm at my highest point.
Exactly.
Let me tell you.
I'm coming off a
Be
4-game
thankful
win.
for where you're at.
Schutz, on to you, my man. Let's talk about your first half of the season and how you're feeling. We talked about that trade we made. I would assume you're feeling good about that. That helped you. George Kittle had not got off to a good start this season. Elijah Mitchell is hurt, and now McCaffrey is the new running back there. So you won that trade at this point in the season. But how are you feeling about your team, man? I'm looking here. Probably the one person that I noticed that I would say has probably been the biggest disappointment is probably Justin Herbert. I mean, like you said, you spent a lot of money on him, and he's currently like the 9th best quarterback. And when you go for a guy like Herbert, it's a lot different than if you're going for Matthew Stafford or Russ Wilson or those guys where you're okay with them being in that 8 to 12 range. You really want a guy like Herbert to give you winning weeks. So how do you feel about your team? How do you feel about Justin Herbert? And what are your thoughts?
I'm a little nervous right now because I have had 2, I think maybe 3 weeks where I hit like 130, 140 points, and one of those weeks was week 2 against Marcos, and he beat me by 2 points, and that was one of my highest scoring weeks. So coming off of something like that really hurts. So there are a few things that I need to look at. There's a couple trades I'm looking at right now. I need to try to get another maybe running back 2, an actual running back 2, and maybe another wide receiver 2 to try to fix my team a little bit, and that's all I can do there. So,
Braden, let's talk about your team. You were at the bottom for most of the first half. Then you finally got up, and then you were that close to being right back on the bottom this last week. But you're back up now. You're up to 10, so you're not even number 11. And so probably not the start that you envisioned for your team. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I don't know. When I got home after draft night, I looked at my team and I was like, it's got potential, but it's just not. Like, I kind of didn't meet my own expectations. And so I actually made a mistake earlier when I was talking about Dalvin Cook, how much I spent on him, because I actually didn't even buy him. It was Jacob.
We're actually going to talk about that. So you started the season with Joe Mixon and Fournette. That is who you drafted, draft night. But now at this point, you've already transitioned both of those, and you're currently playing Dalvin Cook and Kenneth Walker III. So do you like that roster a little bit better, that lineup, or do you wish you could go back to Mixon and Fournette?
No, I think that running back wise, I've definitely taken a step up. I think that I've tried to spend a little bit of these last couple of trades patching up my wide receiver room, and I still need to do that because Debo's not doing what I want him to do. But my running backs are looking better now. Mixon's doing good, but I do feel like Dalvin Cook and Kenneth Walker are a really dangerous duo if I can figure out my quarterback and wide receiver situation.
So, okay, first half thoughts for my team. I'll say this. That trade for George Kittle goes down. He misses the first couple weeks, and then when he comes back, he's still irrelevant. And Elijah Mitchell is out, and now with the incoming of Christian McCaffrey, he's pretty much irrelevant for the rest of the season. That trade really set me back. If that's one thing I could go back, at the time, I was thrilled about it. I wanted George Kittle, so I made my play for him. I went to Braden. I said, Braden, can you give me some advice? He said, dude, you have to go after Elijah Mitchell. He's going to win you the league. And so I took that advice, and he didn't win me the league. So here I am. That's pretty much verbatim how it went.
Okay, but your running backs were literally only Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon.
And I've made trades. So my first half of the season started well. I was 2-0. I lose 4 in a row. It was brutal, but I think I'm coming off of a win, and I feel okay. So going into the second half of the season, Braden, you've changed your name. Thank goodness. I told you to leave it at Bad Luck Braden. I don't know why you switched it back. You switched it back to Bad Luck Braden. And now you're back to winning, and I think that is going to fuel you for a second half season turnaround. How do you feel about the name change, and was it inspired to bring some motivation to your team?
I think that throughout my life, whenever I think that things are going well, I instantly crash.
Story time.
So when I embrace the awfulness that is the story of my life, things seem to look up because when I put myself on the bottom, there's nowhere else to look. But that being said, I've now embraced the bad luck. I like my roster now way more than I liked it at the first of the season.
So let's talk about your roster. I have deemed as running back university. You have hoarded all the running backs now, and my question to you is, are you going to sit on these guys, or are you going to use them to go get other pieces? Like we said, we're going in the second half of the season. Everyone's still in it, but 2 or 3 losses early here could get you right out of it. So now is the time to be making moves. You no longer want to hesitate. You know what these players are, but we see here, we're looking at your lineup. You have Kenneth Walker III, Brian Robinson. You have Dalvin Cook, Deontay Foreman, Gus Edwards, Darrell Henderson, Alexander Madison. Your bench is pretty much all running backs. So with you having running back university here, what is your plans? What are your strategy for the second half of the season?
My plans are to package one of my running backs with wide receiver and get a step up at wide receiver. And that's what I've been trying to kind of send out. I don't want to shop Debo, but it's possible that I would. But my plans are to upgrade at wide receiver.
So let's do some trade talk here, because I know you're in discussions with both Lucas and both Schutz right now on some trades. What are you proposing to them? What are they giving back to you? Where are you guys at with all that?
I offered a few things.
And for the guys in the league here that are listening, who is available? Who are you willing to shop, and what do you want back in return?
Lucas and I were in some talks last night. We never really got any traction, but I did offer to Schutz. I did offer Deontay Johnson and Gus Edwards for T. Higgins, and I feel like it wasn't a big drop off at receiver. T is number 23 wide receiver on the year.
Okay.
And Deontay Johnson is 31.
Okay.
So there's an okay gap there. Yeah. But giving him Gus Edwards, who's potentially RB2 territory for us this season, I feel like that's what he needs, and I feel like it makes up for that gap.
And Schutz, how did you feel about this offer?
I don't know. The only thing with Gus Edwards, he's had one game to prove himself, so I'm a little nervous that next week he's gonna go and score 5 points. I don't know if I can trust him yet.
Lucas, how would you feel if you were in Schutz's position and that was the offer being sent to you?
I kind of in a weird way sort of was, because I also tried to trade for Gus Edwards, and the exact same thing that you said was exactly what I was thinking.
Let's go to you, Lucas. Let's talk about your second half, what you're looking for. Like we said, for the first time since week 1, you're currently not the number 1 team in the standings. So looking into this second half of the season, how do you feel like, what do you feel like you need to do to get back up there?
The 2 plans that I have, and one is out of my control, is what I initially planned from draft night is for Kareem Hunt to get traded to somebody that needs a running back or will rely on their RB1 and let him handle a brunt of the carries. So if Kareem Hunt can get traded and then I can pull off a trade for another running back, I think that with where my team is, I'll be content just to pull players onto my bench. Because if Kareem Hunt gets traded to a team, I may not even need to make a trade, but that's been on my radar consistently through the whole season.
Another question I had for you, Lucas, sitting in the number 3 seed. This year, with 12 teams, we have 6 teams going into the playoffs, and that means that the number 1 and the number 2 seed are going to get a bye week. How important is it to you to get a bye week?
I feel like it would almost be a failure for me at this point to get this far into the season and then miss on the bye. So I feel like that's like incredibly important, because any week someone can get injured. You don't know how your team's going to look towards the end of the season. Maybe someone else, is a lot better than they were now, or they just have one good week. And all it takes at that point is just one good week for your competition to beat you, or one bad week from your players. So having that bye is incredibly important. And in the same sense, Marcos, if he doesn't get the bye, or if Blake doesn't get the bye, then that leaves them open to being knocked out.
Yes, definitely. And so, like I said, for the rest of us, we're fighting to try to get into that 4th, 5th, 6th seed. And it looks like right now that number of wins you're going to want to compete for that is right around that 7 or 8 number. I think 7 is probably the lowest you're going to be able to get in at, but more than likely going to have to get up to 8. So looking at you, Schutz, sitting at 2-5, knowing you need to get to about 7 games to even have a shot, you're going to have a good second half of the season. What are you looking to in your team that's going to make the difference? Is your hopes and prayers in the Christian McCaffrey trade? Is him going to the 49ers, you think, going to be enough to catapult your team into that status of playoffs, or is there something else you're looking to?
I don't know if that is going to be enough. I have considered trying to make a trade for him. I don't know if I'm willing to do it yet. I want to give him another week, maybe 2, before I am willing to trade him. Because if he's just going to be getting me, 10, 15 points from a running back like him, you expect so much more. At least I do. And so that's one thing.
And I think that's a big fantasy football wide question right now and I'll ask both Lucas and Braden, you don't have to give a deep explanation on it. Do you think with this trade that right now you would be buying Christian McCaffrey, or would you be selling Christian McCaffrey? And I'll go to you first, Braden.
I think I would be buying Christian McCaffrey just because I know Kyle Shanahan is so he wants to be so run heavy.
Lucas, would you be buying or would you be selling Christian McCaffrey right now?
I would be buying on Christian McCaffrey. I think if you give him about 3 to 4 weeks, we'll see him bounce back in a pretty big way. Just to reiterate what Braden said, if they do what they historically do and hand the ball off a lot, just the more touches on a better offense with better players to open up things. I mean, if I had him, I would have the same concerns, but just from an outsider looking in, I would like to have him on my team because I think that there's great potential there.
Definitely. And I think it obviously depends on your roster and where you at running backs, wide receiver wise, what are your needs, and obviously where are you at in the standings right now. But I think personally I would be selling him. I think that obviously this is a high point. Everyone's super excited to see what is he going to do in Shanahan's offense. And just like we saw with Breece Hall 2 weeks ago, before last week, everyone is so high on these running backs, and it literally just takes one play and they lose all of their value. Javonte Williams, Breece Hall, it happens over and over. And Christian McCaffrey, he has that history already of being injury prone. So right now, maybe you wait for him to have a huge week and then you maybe move him. But I would be excited for sure that he's a 49er, but I also would be very hesitant not to trade him at such a high point. If in fact there's value. Now, if someone's trying to lowball you to get him, not at all. But if you can get rid of him for a decent price, then by all means, I would be shopping it.
So,
you know, you field your offers, you do what you want there, but those are our suggestions from 3 other people to you there. Real quick, guys, because I know we've gone way too long here. Give me your predictions. Real quick, just one by one. Don't need a super long explanation. Looking at it right now, we're halfway through the season. Lucas, who do you think is going to win this year's Barbers United Fantasy Football League Championship? Go.
I'm gonna pick myself.
Pick yourself? Because why not? Shuts, give me yours. Marcos? Braden, give me yours.
I'll go Blake.
Go Blake?
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Marcos as well. The one thing I'll say is looking just at the points. Max points scored, he's in first place. Most points scored, he is currently in first place. So he's doing everything he can to win. Prediction for last place. Who do you guys think is going to get the haircut? We'll go reverse order this time. We'll start with Braden. Who do you think?
Man, it's a tough one because I can always bet on myself to be last and everything. But Jacob, man, his team has just found, he doesn't have a bad team, but they just keep finding a way to lose somehow.
I'll say this about Jacob. Jacob actually has like the 8th most points scored. Like he has actually scored more than a couple people that are ahead of him, and I won't name names, but he's actually scored more points than a couple people ahead of him. So, Lucas, give me your last place pick. Who do you think will finish last?
I'm going with Phillip. I don't think that Daniel Jones is going to keep up what he's been doing. The Giants have won games pretty close right at the end, and I just don't think he's going to keep that up. ETN will be solid for him, but there's not really everybody else in his team doesn't really get me very excited about what he's got going on. And
guys, give me your underdog pick. Someone not in the top 6 right now, but you say come into season, they're going to finish, they're going to make the playoffs. Who is your underdog pick? I spent the whole season talking about Sam being my underdog pick. He finally made it back into the playoff picture. Now he has fallen just slightly off. He is dealing with some injuries. DK Metcalf is out for an indefinite period of time. Not sure when he's going to come back. So that makes me a little bit worried. Shuts, who do you have? Not in the top 6, but will be there come into season.
So I said you last week, and I'm sticking to you this week. You came off a dub last week, and I think you're going to win this week as well. Possibly. Oh, shoot. Never mind. That was wrong week. Anyways, next
But
week.
do you still feel good
next
about
week,
it? I play Marcos, so it's
okay.
going to be rough next week.
Yeah, so I think after Marcos, I think you'll be fine.
Fair enough. Lucas, give me your underdog pick. Not in top 6, but will be.
Sam.
Thank you.
I
thought you said same.
No, I'm going with Sam, and as a matter of fact, I think Sam finishes in the top 5.
Really? Okay. Braden, who you got? You picking your brother?
No, can't. I'm going to go, oh man, if I wasn't so bad.
You want to pick yourself? Pick yourself, man, because why not?
You got trade capital.
You
Yeah.
got
put
running
team
back
players up.
university
I think I'm one.
You got Tom Brady. You can move the GOAT. You
I
get a
think
haul for him.
I don't have Tom Brady anymore.
Oh, you don't? Aaron Rodgers. You have Aaron Rodgers, the second GOAT.
Not after
you
tomorrow.
Can get a haul. Not after tomorrow.
Not after 4 a.m. I think I'm one more like good trade away from being like an actual contender, but I'm gonna go Sam. Like I think he's in a better striking position than me.
Fair
I
enough.
need to have a lot of things go right for me, and I'm not used to it. So, into one.
Guys, thank you so much for doing this. This has been a blast. I wish we could do this every week. But tune in later on this week. There will be a part 2 to this. However, it will not be these guys. We've got a few different guys in the league that are going to come in, and they're going to do a similar sort of thing. So, guys, any last words? Anything
Go
at all?
Bulls.
Go see my man's YouTube channel. Once again, we've talked about it before. What is it?
Triple L.
Triple L. And don't put in what?
Oh, don't just search Triple L. Put in Triple L Sports or anything.
Yes.
Like sports related.
And we're rooting for the Phillies. If you want to know why, then just search Triple L and you'll find out why. Rooting for the Phillies over there. My man's Eagles are undefeated. His Phillies are in the World Series, and his team is currently number 3, was number 1. If you hit the trifecta, if all 3 of those win a championship, will you just walk away? Will you be done with sports forever?
No, I'm too much of a glutton for punishment.
Thank you guys for watching. I'm rooting for the Phillies. I do not want to see the Astros win again. You're right.
Go Cubs.
Oh, goodness.
Break the cards.
We will see you guys in a couple of days. Thank you guys for watching. Like, subscribe, share, and we'll see you soon.